Hey everyone, it's Julie Kruger from Kruger Immigration Law. Hope you're all having a great day. So we're starting to receive calls from permanent residents, green card holders, who departed the United States in early 2020, either specifically because of the COVID situation or departed for some other reason and ended up staying outside the United States longer than they planned to because of the COVID situation. And this causes an issue for their green card. So this is what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is what happens when you leave the United States and you're outside the United States longer than you expected, perhaps more than 6 months. So when you have a green card, you're meant to spend more than half the time in the United States, more than 6 months out of each year. And this goes not only towards whether you're eventually eligible to apply for naturalization, but also towards whether you have maintained your lawful permanent resident status in the United States. If you are outside the United States for too long, Customs and Border Protection or the Department of Homeland Security will consider you to have abandoned your permanent resident status and we'll try to take it away from you. From their perspective, having a green card is a privilege and not a right, and it is a privilege that's meant to be used. And this seems to come from a perspective of scarcity rather than prosperity, right? From the idea that perhaps there is a limited number of people who could have green cards, and therefore we want to, save them for the people who really want to keep them. But in fact, that's not in the law anywhere. There's no limit on the number of people who can have green cards. And there's really no reason, necessarily why, we should be so focused on making sure that people maintain their green card status. But that's the situation. So let's talk about what to do when this happens. So if you are outside the United States for more than 6 months, when you try to return to the United States and you show up at the port of entry, that border officer who is reviewing and determining whether you can be allowed back into the United States as a green card holder, if you've been outside for more than 6 months, that officer is going to question whether you have abandoned your permanent resident status. When you are outside for more than 6 months, the law regulations say that they can question whether you've abandoned your permanent resident status. But it is a question, and it is something that you can overcome. You can argue back. And you can point to things like whether you've maintained a residence in the United States, whether you've maintained employment in the United States, whether you have family members, close, significant family members who remain in the United States, other significant ties to the United States, and also about your intentions. Well, when I left the US, I intended to return at X time or when X event occurred, but because of the pandemic or whatever reason, I got stuck outside the United States longer than I thought, but I'm returning now. I always intended to return and I did not abandon my permanent resident status. So more than 6 months outside the United States, but less than 12 months. They can question your green card and whether you've abandoned your permanent resident status. You can make arguments back and overcome that question. However, once you are outside the United States for more than 12 months at one time, they will presume, and it's in the law, you have given up your green card, you've disrupted the continuity of your residence in the United States. They will take away your green card. They'll ask you to sign a form saying that you've abandoned your green card status, and you will no longer be a permanent resident of the United States. Now, you can fight this. If that happens, you can again try to make those arguments right there at the border, but more likely they will try to take your green card away, and they can place you into a removal proceeding. Removal is the legal word for deportation, but basically it gives you the opportunity to go before an immigration judge and make your arguments to the immigration judge as to whether you've abandoned your permanent resident and the resident status. And again, you're going to make all those same arguments that I just mentioned. Whether you maintained a residence in the United States, employment, your finances, bank accounts, money, stock accounts, retirement accounts, your close family members, where are they located? Your intentions, what happened? What were your intentions when you left? Did you always intend to return? And any other ties that you have maintained in the United States to show that you did not abandon your green card status. So this is something that is starting to come up as people, again, have left the United States early in 2020 or mid 2020. And they're coming up on that, maybe 6 months or maybe close to 12 months outside the United States. This is a real concern. The officers at the border, They are not sympathetic to the argument that there is a global pandemic happening and that there should be some leeway in this circumstance. They're just not. It's in the law and they're going to follow that. We've already seen that happening. So don't come back to the border thinking, well, they'll understand it's a global pandemic. They won't. Be prepared before you come back to the border. Contact an experienced immigration attorney. Talk with them about how long you've been outside the United States, what ties you've maintained to the United States while you were outside the United States. What were your intentions when you left? Why are you coming back now? How long are you going to be coming back for? What steps can you take? What can you bring to the border with you to show that you didn't abandon your permanent resident status? What if you can come back now, but you can't stay now? What can you do while you're here that can help you preserve your permanent resident status for the future? So this is something that you should definitely talk to an immigration attorney about before you come back to the border and figure out what the best strategy for you in your particular situation is. There's a returning resident visa. Maybe you've been out for more than 1 year and, one of the things that you can do is apply for a returning resident visa to prove to the consulate before you come to the United States that you didn't abandon your status. And that way you come back with a visa and your passport and the officer is going to be much more likely to readmit you to the United States. So if this is your situation or you think this might be your situation in the near future, give us a call. My phone number is 716-393-9878. And I'd be happy to speak with you about this and talk about what the best strategy in your situation is, how long you've been out, what ties you maintain to the United States, what you want to do now, what your long-term goals are. And we can figure out the best strategy for you and give you advice on what to do. So give us a call. My phone number is 716-393-9878. You can email me at julie@krugerimmigrationlaw.com and we can find a time to talk and figure out the best strategy for you. Thanks.